Shabbat Shalom, L'chaim, L'chaim. This week's Torah portion is Balak, and Chutz La'aretz, it's both Chukas and Balak. The Torah portion speaks about a king, the king of Moab, which is Balak, who brings a prophet, the greatest prophet for the non-Jewish people. His name is Bilam. They say that as great as Moshe was for the Jewish people, the greatest prophet we ever had, Bilam was the opposite. He was the greatest prophet for the non-Jews. And the way the story goes is that Balak takes Bilam to 3 different places where he's able to see the Jewish people encamped, and his hope is that he'll curse the Jews. Why does he want to curse them? One, it's very much a feeling of anti-Semitism, but really, if you boil it down, Balak is afraid because the Jews have just defeated the 2 greatest kings in the area, Sichon and Og, and he's now afraid that they're going to come and defeat him. So he brings Bilam to come and curse the Jews. And as Bilam says, he's unable to depart from the word of Hashem, and instead what happens is he blesses the Jewish people on 3 different occasions. One of the greatest prophecies we see from this week's Torah portion is actually the prophecy for the coming of Mashiach. So it's a very unique and special parsha that the prophecy comes from such an impure person, but it's the greatest prophecy for the Jewish people. At the end of the Torah portion, we get the story of Pinchas. The story of Pinchas is that Bilam is unable to curse the Jewish people, so he gives Balak advice. He says the Jewish people and Hashem hate promiscuity. So send your daughters to go and entice the Jewish men into bad ways, and you'll be able to bring their downfall. And this brings us to the story of Pinchas, where Pinchas basically is zealous for Hashem and stops what was happening, what Balak did, which was exactly that. He sent in the woman to go and entice the Jewish men. So that's the Torah portion in a nutshell. What I want to focus on is something that's repeated many times in the Torah portion. It says that Bilam took up his parable. And over again it says, Bilam took up his parable, and this is what he said. And before every time he gives his prophecy, this is what he says. Bilam took up his parable. This week, I was listening to a lesson, a course that I'm in, and this man was speaking about business efficiency, how to make a business more efficient. And he kept relating it back to his own analogy of a marathon. He's saying, a business needs to run like a marathon. In a marathon, you go with a group of people, and together you're able to accomplish greater feats. So that was his analogy, and he kept coming back to this analogy of the marathon. Why? Most likely because he was a marathon runner. And it got me thinking, in life, we all have these parables, these stories that we tell ourselves to help us make sense of life. And what it does is sometimes we really start to identify with these stories that we tell ourselves. For example, using myself, I at one point in life was a runner. That was my whole identity. It's who I was. But it was so easily taken away from me. And when it's taken away, you feel lost because you've actually forgotten the plot. You've been so identified with the story that you don't remember who you really are. They say that King Solomon wrote 3,000 parables, 3,000 mashalim, just to understand one mashal, one parable. The idea is that sometimes you have such a complex idea that you need a story to help you understand just one part of that. And then you need another story just to understand that story. So in life, we end up telling ourselves these stories and identifying with them, but it's not actually who we are. And the whole purpose of these stories is to help us get back to who we are. So I was really inspired when I kept seeing this pop up, that Bilam took up his parable. Because we see a lesson from this, that in life we do tell ourselves stories, and it is to make sense of life. But the whole point should be so that we could come back to who we really are. At the essence, at the core of it, we are Jewish people. And that is not just a story, it's the truth. It's our essence. And when you can connect back to that, you don't need all these stories. You don't need to tell yourself things to make things make sense. You have who you are in your essence, and that is all that matters. And when you're able to connect back to that essence, to connect back to who you truly are, then you will arrive at this place which is Israel, where the Jewish people are going, B'ezrat Hashem, where we will all end up one day with the coming of Mashiach. Shabbat Shalom.